Now, the trade took place 14 years ago. And today, here in 2022, it still seems to be a topic that people seem to always bring up. And it was the Pau Gasol trade to the Los Angeles Lakers for some draft picks, some other players, and most notably, his baby brother, Marc Gasol, who was a rookie. So since I never got a chance to speak on this because, YouTube was around, but it wasn't the YouTube. I didn't have a channel and I didn't have the platform basically to speak on it. But because this seemed to be a hot topic today, I'm going to use this opportunity to address it and tell what I think about it and what I believe to be true about the trade between Marc Gasol and Pau Gasol. Pau coming from the Memphis Grizzlies, Marc Gasol to the Memphis Grizzlies from the Lakers. Now, Kendrick Perkins, who sent out a tweet the other day, I guess someone asked him, what's the worst trade in sports history? And Perk, not comprehending because that's the Kendrick Perkins way, he responds and say, the worst trade in NBA history is Pau Gasol. It's Pau Gasol, not Paul. Pau, P-A-U. The worst trade in NBA history is Pau Gasol and a second rounder for Kwame Brown, Javarius Critton, and the rights to a baby Marc Gasol. I think it changed the fate of the Lakers, and you know what it did for the Grizzlies, for Memphis. Carry on. Now, people, like I said, this is my stance on it. Pau Gasol came to the Memphis Grizzlies from, I think he played in Spain first, his home country. He came to the Grizzlies in 2001, and he spent about 6-7 years there before the trade to the Lakers. They made it to the playoffs 3 consecutive years, I think in year 3 of his tenure there. They made it 3 times in a row, and all 3 years they were swept out of the first round, going nowhere. So after the 3rd year of making it to the playoffs, the Grizzlies finally fall back down to where they were once before when they were Vancouver and the first, when they first moved to Memphis, a really bad team, winning 19, 20 some games. And I don't know the whole story. I don't know how Pau was feeling behind the scenes, but I got to imagine that he was not very happy that they are once again in a rebuild situation and the franchise did nothing to capitalize on the fact that they were getting to the playoffs. And we know how tough the Western Conference was, and we're going to get into that a little bit too. So they got there 3 years in a row, swept out every time. And now they're back to being the terrible Memphis Grizzlies, 20-some wins, 19 or whatever, lottery pick team. So I can imagine Pau was quietly disgruntled behind the scenes, not making a big fuss about it publicly, and they had to trade him away. And the same thing was going on over in LA with the Lakers. Kobe Bryant was not happy with the direction of the team. He was not happy with how things were going. He didn't feel that they were a championship team, so he wanted to change. He wanted to be traded. We all know the story about that. So they ended up getting Pau Gasol, the Lakers did, in a trade. And this happened, I think, in February, around this time in 2008, 14 years ago. And you keep hearing people, you hear people over the years talk about how the Lakers, robbed the Grizzlies in this trade. They were able to, commit a heist, basically. When in actuality, they did no such thing. Because when they got Pau Gasol, we know the Lakers went on, and I think the reason people say the Lakers robbed this trade is because the Lakers went on to make it to the finals 3 years in a row and won 2 championships out of the deal. Meanwhile, a rebuilding Grizzlies were doing just that, rebuilding. They got Marc Gasol, who didn't play his rookie year, but he did play the very next year, and the team went from 20 wins to 24 wins, and Marc Gasol made it to all rookie second team. So there's the promise right there with baby Marc Gasol. Because the thing about this is, who were y'all expecting the Grizzlies to get out of this trade? Kobe Bryant? Lamar Odom? What did y'all feel the Grizzlies needed? They got a young prospect. The Lakers are not known for developing players. And Memphis got a promising prospect, a player that they could develop and make something. And that's just what Marc Gasol became, something, an important piece to that franchise and what they were able to accomplish in Memphis. So people talking as if the Grizzlies should have gotten Kobe Bryant or something. It's like, what were y'all expecting them to get from this trade? They're rebuilding. Why would you take one disgruntled superstar in Memphis and and the Lakers give them their disgruntled superstar? You got the same situation. The Lakers were ready to win now. The Grizzlies were rebuilding. So anyway, Marc helps them win 24 games, which is not a good record, but it's a start. 24 games in his rookie year, in which he was all rookie second team. And then they improved even more the following year in 2009, 2010 by winning 40 games. Now, if you were in the East, that'll be enough to get you in the playoffs, because we know that the 07-08 Atlanta Hawks became the 8th seed with just 37 wins. Meanwhile, in the West, the 8th seed had 50 wins. So it's a tough Western Conference, but that right there is a big leap to go from 20 games to 24, and now you at 40. And then what do? The following year in 2010, 2011, and this was the year Pau Gasol and the Lakers got swept out of the second round against the Dallas Mavericks, and baby brother Marc Gasol helped lead the Grizzlies to a 46-36 record, and they beat the one-seeded San Antonio Spurs in the first round. They became the third 8th seed to beat a 1 seed. I believe, third, because the Nuggets did it to the Sonics, I think, in 93. The Knicks did it to the Heat in 99. The Warriors did it to the Mavericks in 07. And the fourth time, the Grizzlies did it to the Spurs in 2011. So where is the robbery in this trade? This is an investment for Memphis, and it's paying off. It's a process. Lakers were ready to win now. Memphis is building to win in the future. And they go 46-36, beat the one-seeded Spurs, go to the second round and take the up-and-coming Thunder to 7 games. They were 1 win away from making it to the Western Conference Finals, their first time in the playoffs. 1 win away. And then the following year, and the lockout season, they go 41-25. Marc Gasol makes an all-star team. They take a little minor step back by losing to the Clippers in the first round of the Western Conference of the playoffs in 7 games. But the Warriors did that same thing. Only difference is the Warriors went on to win a championship. Warriors went to the second round, their first time in the playoffs, lost to the Spurs in the second round the following year, lost to the Clippers in 7 games. The year after that, won a championship. And the Memphis Grizzlies were that close to following that same path. So they lost to the Clippers in the first round. But this is mainly about Marc Gasol, who made an all-star team. And what do? The following year in 2012-2013, they go 56-26, made it to the Western Conference Finals. Marc Gasol won Defensive Player of the Year. And yes, I know people will say, oh, their trip to the conference finals was a fluke because Russell Westbrook got injured in that series versus Memphis, and Kevin Durant had to go at it alone against those, them big boys out there in Memphis, because that was an all-defensive team. They had Zach Randolph, Tony Allen, Mike Conley, Marc Gasol. I think all 4 of those dudes made all-defensive. Well, I don't know about Zach Randolph, but the 3 of those dudes made all-defensive teams, and Kevin Durant was not going to beat them without Russell Westbrook. So, but what I say that to say this, that's the unfortunate part about sports. I always say it. Injuries are part of the game. You can, if you want to, realistically, there's a lot of championships that you can go look at and say, oh, this person got injured, so y'all won. It's the unfortunate part about it. What was Memphis supposed to do? Lose on purpose? Because they're like, oh, people are going to criticize us if we win this series and they don't have Westbrook, so let's just tank it and lose the series. No, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's part of the game, injuries. And it just so happened that it benefited the Grizzlies, and they made it to the Western Conference Finals. Got swept by the Spurs, but they made it to the Western Conference Finals. The investment was paying off. And then the year after that, they went 50-32, and they lost to the Thunder in 7 games in the first round. Then Marc Gasol makes All-NBA first team in 2014-2015. They go 55-27, and they lost to the Warriors in the second round. And Marc Gasol made an All-Star team. Not to mention, Mike Conley got injured in that series against the Warriors. Now, I'm not saying had he been there, it would have been a shoo-in that the Grizzlies would have won. But the Memphis were up 2-1. And Mike Conley going down did change the dynamic of that series. It did impact it. And I know Warrior fans get all up in a bunch saying, oh, he's trying to take away from our championship, when that's just not the case. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, injuries are part of the game. And Mike Conley played a big part in what the Memphis Grizzlies were accomplishing. And not to mention, I'm telling you how Memphis is winning 50 games on average every year, 50 plus games. And they're not even doing this as a top 3, top 4 seed. They're doing this from the 5, 6, and 7 spot, because that's just how tough the Western Conference was back then. Your 7 seed is winning 50 some games. Your 6 seed, 55 games. That's what Memphis was doing back then. And then it started to, come apart. And I'm going to tell you the reason Memphis couldn't win a championship, in my opinion. So after the loss to the Warriors in the second round, they go 42-40 the following year. Marc Gasol makes another All-Star team, but they lost in the first round. And in 2016-2017, they go 43-39, lose in the first round again. And after that, Marc Gasol would go on to the Toronto Raptors and win a championship with Kawhi Leonard. Now, this investment paid off for Memphis, and it would have completely paid off had, Rudy Gay, I think, was part of the team. They were probably expecting Rudy to be that scoring guy who could get them that bucket at the end of the game, in crunch time of the game. But Rudy Gay never manifested until what they were hoping for out there in Memphis. But that just goes to show you, with the team that they had, that's all they needed was I won't even say a LeBron or a Jordan or a Kobe type guy. I will say all Memphis needed with what they had was a Kawhi Leonard, who Marc Gasol later got in Toronto, and they won the championship. Again, Warriors fans, I know, had Kevin Durant or even just Clay been there, y'all would have won. I get it. But all they needed was a Kawhi Leonard, Memphis, a Jimmy Butler, or even a Paul George. And that right there would have probably helped put Memphis over the top. So that investment Memphis made back in 2008 would have completely paid off. So this notion that the Lakers robbed this trade and this is the worst trade in NBA history, which is nowhere even close to the worst trade in NBA history. This whole notion is just a myth. It's even a bigger myth than this other notion that the Lakers always get superstar players in free agency. We got Shaq in 96 and LeBron in 2018. That's a 22-year difference of superstars. And if you are counting Gary Payton and Karl Malone in 04, then I'm laughing at you. And if you want to count Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony in last summer, then be my guest. But this notion that the Lakers buy their players, buy their championships, it's laughable because it's just not true. 22 years, Shaq, LeBron, who do we get in free agency? Who? But yeah, this paid off for Memphis. It's not the Lakers' fault that Rudy Gay didn't turn into what they wanted for the Grizzlies. It's not the Lakers' fault that they couldn't find an extra piece to build on this, but Marc Gasol had a fantastic career. And during this time, he was one of the best big men in the NBA. He could also shoot the three, and he was much tougher than big brother Pau Gasol. So Kendrick Perkins and all these other people going on trying to put down Kwame Brown by saying that this is the worst trade in NBA history. It's like, you are NBA, a former player, and you represent athletes. You clearly don't do your homework. Bill Russell's trade. I'm not going to get deep into it because I've been on here long enough. But there are so many trades that we can go point at. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So many. And the person said sports history, and he gonna keep it strictly NBA. And you telling me and if you misread what the guy asked you on Twitter, you telling me that's the worst trade in sports history? Marc Gasol to the Lakers? Man, this is laughable. This is laughable. So anyway, I just showed y'all everything Marc Gasol accomplished in the 6-year run he had with the Grizzlies, making all-star teams, taking them one series win away from the NBA Finals. Call it a fluke, but injuries are part of the game. Clearly, this was not a bad trade. It's an investment. Memphis made it, and it would have paid off had they gotten one more player that could get them a bucket in crunch time.